In 1993, when we opened in Troy, New York, we were the 21st brewery to operate in the city of Troy. However, the city had not seen a brewery since 1963. It was kind of a reintroduction of craft back then and just reintroducing them to beer that had flavor.
About 20 years ago, I started bartending, and we had a bar that had 27 beers on tap, which almost 20 years ago was a real anomaly. And in order to fill all those draft lines, you really relied on a lot of import brands like Dos Equis and Stella and Guinness, Newcastle, many others that have kind of taken a back seat to craft now that American companies are making such variety.
I started going out to Colorado in my 20s to ski, and that's kind of where the whole microbrew craft beer started, and I loved it, and I couldn't get it on the East Coast. So now that it's available so much more easily, it's great.
Last year, when I was in Denver at the Craft Brewers Conference, they put up the top 5 states for growth in 2014, and we were number 2 in the country with 67 brewery openings last year alone.
Hi, I'm Christine Bellino. Welcome to The Beer Next Door Craft Beer. It is beer that could be brewed by your neighbors or even by you. It is beer that is infused with and brewed with the personality of the people who make it.
The local spirit of Old Forge and the stories behind the Fulton chain of lakes are the main reason Fulton Chain Craft Brewery co-founders Richard Mathy and Justin Saskowitz decided on Old Forge as the location to open their craft brewery and tasting room. They started their journey to open the brewery a little more than a year ago. It was a short trip, but like the waterways of the Adirondacks, it has been full of twists, turns, and surprises.
So Rich and I met camping up at Racket Lake. It's a little farther north. So we were both camping with our families, and he was, hanging out with his friends. I was hanging out with my friends. We happened to walk by, saw each other, started talking, hung out for the weekend. Camping ended. We all went our separate ways. Next year, we all go camping again without talking to each other. End up camping the same place, same time. So we're like, well, we should probably just hang out for the weekend again and party. And this happened for a few years, and then after that, we were like, well, we should probably just become friends. The day that we decided we were actually going to open the brewery, we found a canoe upside down in the woods next to a lake. And we had hiked all the way back to this lake, and I kind of looked over at the canoe, and I was like, whoa, there's a canoe. So before Rich could even say anything, I already had the canoe flipped over, and I was in the water, like waiting for him to jump in. So we took this canoe, paddled around the lake, and we basically talked about, is it plausible to do a brewery up in Old Forge? Like, is this something that we should jump on? And the whole time we were canoeing, we kept saying, adventure canoe. That canoe kind of spawned this business.
When Justin and I were talking about starting a brewery, Justin pitched the idea of Old Forge, and we started looking around and like, wow, yeah, this is really a place that would work. A lot of people go on vacation, a lot of people want to kick back. When they go up to a town like Old Forge, they want to know what's local. People really want to know what's from the region. They want to be able to sit back and drink a beer from their vacation town, not something they can get down at the grocery store and get any day of the week.
Justin and Rich set out to raise money for the Fulton Chain Brewery in August 2014 with a Kickstarter campaign. And through the online fundraising website, they found a supportive community that succeeded in getting the project off the ground.
The Kickstarter was huge, not only that we got initial funding, but it was kind of one of those things that once the Kickstarter succeeded, you felt like, all right, it's game time, and we actually have to do this. It would have been terrible if the Kickstarter failed, and who knows if we would have ever opened a brewery if we didn't get this Kickstarter. So all these people that kind of took a leap of faith on us, as soon as that day happened, I was like, well, Rich, no turning back now.
The two settled on a location, a building that housed a former bowling alley among other businesses before it was closed and lay vacant for several years. They completely rebuilt the interior for the brewery and the tasting room and installed all the equipment. And while they were physically ready to open, there was one detail that stopped them. They didn't have a permit.
We filed the state probably 2.5 months ago. We expected it to take we heard stories anywhere from people getting it in 3 weeks to people getting it in 6 months. We were kind of hoping that 2 months would be enough. According to New York State, it's just the normal wait time to get a license. But to us, it's, kind of an inconvenience because summer's coming up real quick. We filed our license and we've been patiently waiting. But we just,
Memorial Day came and went, and the completed brewery sat still and quiet without any beer production.
We haven't had a chance to use it yet. New York State license specifically says that we can't brew anything on site. Since it's commercial space, we're not allowed to use it until we have a license in hand.
A holiday weekend like July 4th is a busy one in Old Forge, and if you own a business here, this is definitely a weekend you want to be open. Justin and Rich were worried about opening up. Not only are they open, but it's a full house. You surprised at this?
It's 4th of July, so being our first time, I don't know if this is a good 4th of July. This could be a slow 4th of July for all we know. But I'm thrown back. I'm kind of humbled by the fact that people coming in.
We got tons of recipes that we want to just keep releasing. Like we got seasonals, Yeah, we got like a pumpkin ale that we're gonna do for the fall. All of our beers at the moment are they're about 85% New York State grown product. All the hops are 100% New York State.
The two things that are awesome that have happened are when people come in that we don't know. That means that either someone's told them about it or they heard about it this way or that way. So to see people that we don't know showing up is awesome. And then return customers are awesome. We must be making all right beer if people keep showing up to drink it.
I would never speak bad about any of the macro beers. And I can call them macro beers because they're calling themselves macro beers now. So I don't feel like that's an insulting word. I think that they brew a really good product. They brew solid products. But right now, the younger generation, the millennials and the Gen Xers are driving this craft beer movement. It really, they want local beer, and macro is just not it. And so they're losing market share, and there's really nothing they can do about it because it's not what people are asking for. The consumer's driving this. And without the consumer, then you don't see so many business openings. I mean, they want locally sourced beer.
One strategy employed by some of the major brands to garner a piece of that market is to fashion some of their beers as craft beers or buy up smaller breweries. And when you bring up that topic, you can elicit some strong opinions.
Local restaurant owner Tim Hardiman is an advocate for using local, buying local, and supporting local. He uses local produce in his menu items, and when it comes to beer, the emphasis is on New York State craft beer. And like many craft beer fans, he strongly supports independent business.
You see some really quality breweries that have been bought up by the bigger names. And then, they sold their soul, or what's Goose Island?
Yep, that was a big one.
Goose Island is a high quality brewery. And now they're owned by Budweiser. And I, just on principle alone, to not drink that, but the quality of the beer hasn't changed at all.
Well, I think it has actually.
Has it?
Like, they brought some to much more mass production, and that always drops the quality.
No matter what you do, the more you make of something, it's gonna affect the end result.
I don't feel like it's an intrusion. I think that the craft beer consumer is very savvy, and they know the difference between a handcrafted, local, artisanal beer than a mass-produced craft beer, if you will.
There's a lot of beer to be consumed in the U.S. and in the world, so there's room for all of it. The consumer's going to ultimately pick what they want to pick for whatever reason they want to pick it, whether it's quality, whether it's a story, whether it's the shiny label, whatever reason there is. But there's a lot of beer to be consumed in the U.S.
If you look at a brand like, let's say, Sierra Nevada, for instance, who is a very well-known brewery in the country, one of the best in my opinion, and started as a craft brewer. In my opinion, as long as the quality does not suffer, they'll always be a craft brewer to me as long as they put that thought into their product.
At the heart of any brewery, no matter how big or small, is the brewmaster. And this is especially true of the small craft breweries. The brewmaster is so important that without him or her, there may be no beer.
Chris Talgo monitors the pulse of the local scene with several businesses, a restaurant, a bakery, and the Nail Creek Pub, a popular spot to get a drink or bite to eat on Varick Street in Utica. The Nail Creek Pub opened in 2008 with brewing craft beer as a primary goal.
When we originally opened 7 or 8 years ago now, our original intent was always to have a microbrewery. And about 4 years into it, we were able to make that happen through about probably 2 or 3 years of hard work, and we were getting miscellaneous equipment from like old maple syrup farms and just all over the place. So we finally made it happen, and it was myself and my friend Chris, and we were making incredible beer. A brew day was about 12 hours to 14 hours. Just you would get there from the beginning to the end. We were making phenomenal beer, but some things happened, and Chris had to go back to Albany. For me to try and do that on my own would be nearly impossible. And then these other opportunities sort of opened up with the Tailor and the Cook, and now with Utica Bread, so I haven't been able to kind of focus to get the brewery back open. But once the bakery kind of settles down to something that I really want to move back into, and it's probably going to involve purchasing a whole new brewing system, something that's a lot more streamlined than kind of our makeshift system. And it's probably going to be a very small brewery, like a 2 to 3 barrel. And we're just going to be selling it here. Before, we wanted to get our beer in other bars, and we wanted to get it all over the place. But in all reality, I really just want to have it here. People know that they can come and they can get it here. And when you're that small of a scale, it would be almost impossible to make money trying to sell it someplace else. So, I mean, it will be local beer. It will still be the second largest brewery in Utica.